In the dim corridors of time, whispers swirl around the shadows of a monarch's chamber. Secrets long buried begin to stir as an aged parchment, stained by the passage of years, is unearthed. This is no ordinary document. It holds the power to alter the course of a centuries-old dynasty. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. As the ink etches its tale of hidden ambitions and clandestine liaisons, the fates of crowned heads and loyal subjects entwine in a saga of power and peril. Royal hearts that once beat in unity now stand on the brink of dissonance, as ancient vows are tested against the stirrings of insurrection. This memo, a mere fragment of history, now pulses with the vigor of a revolution yet unseen, promising revelations that could raise or resurrect the monarchy's legacy. So stand on the edge, poised between revelation and ruin, as we journey into the heart of secrets that could shatter the gilded silence, unfolding the tapestry of a royal mystery that demands to be uncovered. In the dawn of young Charles's existence, life was a tapestry woven with threads of both grandeur and impending shadow. Raised amidst opulence that shimmered like gold under the twinkling lights of the monarchy, Charles could never escape the omnipresent spectre of destiny. Each morning the sun rose over Buckingham Palace, a palace heavy with history and expectation, yet within its illustrious walls the shadows gathered, constantly whispering the names of his forebears and murmuring tales of the past. Even as a boy, Charles felt not only the weight of a lineage, but the cool, haunting breath of a legendary figure, yet to intertwine with his own fate. The echoes of protocol met with the innocence of childhood, etching duty into his young soul. Yet it was the spectre of Diana, though unseen then, that loomed ever nearer, a whispering promise of both love and turbulence. Early on, the essence of his sheltered world began to unravel with whispers of ambition and the alerted murmurings of tradition. In those formative years, the portrait of a life so publicly cradled was painted over with hidden hues of coming conflict, painted with stark strokes of a future that promised as much turbulence as tenderness. Even then, the whispers impossible to ignore questioned who could ever rise alongside him and weather the storm of history. Murmurs swirled around as if the very walls of the ancestral halls were rehearsing for the coming chapter, hinting at the intricacies of what was to come. Amidst such grandeur, there was a sense of waiting, a latent energy, electric and charged, holding its breath. As young Charles stood on the precipice of his legacy, the idea of Diana, though unnamed, lingered like a shadow on the periphery of his unwritten story, promising both brilliant light and the darkest of eclipses. The dance of their future was poised on the edge of becoming, a prelude to spectacles and trials vast and beyond measure. The stage was set, the players yet to meet, but the stage whispered tales of the storm and serenity that were never far behind. And thus, the boy who would be king waited silently within the sprawling corridors of his youth, the shadow yet unseen, but felt a harbinger of what was undeniably approaching, altering his world irrevocably. For it was in the shadow of Diana that Charles would find both his greatest joy and most profound sorrow, that delicate dance of dichotomy destined to unfold under the eyes of the world. As whispers of clandestine encounters echoed through the corridors of Windsor, a name emerged with resounding fervor: Camilla. This chapter of rekindled passions began not in whispered shadows, but in the brazen daylight of unyielding destiny. Boldness and betrayal merged as Camilla's presence became a living testament to an undying flame that had been smouldering beneath societal scrutiny. It was a love that defied convention, igniting the embers of a romance thought extinguished. As the royal narrative unfolded, each glance between Charles and Camilla was a dance of defiance against the stern walls of tradition. Yet, beneath the layers of newfound affection lay the fractures of a kingdom torn asunder by the audacity of human desire. In the regal halls, speculation became a courtly sport, tongues wagging as the once whispered affair turned to public spectacle. Those who held the power of acceptance wielded it sparingly, gauging loyalty by proximity to the throne. Fearsome were the hearts tied to the monarchy's fate, casting wary eyes on a love that threatened to rewrite the annals of royal doctrine. Amidst the reverberating echoes of judgment, Camilla's presence was both questioned and embraced, leaving the populace divided. Intrigued whispers wove through the fabric of society, wrapping Camilla and Charles in a delicate tapestry of fascination and controversy. The monarchy stood, perilously poised, between the steadfast resolve of tradition and the breathtaking allure of love unfettered. The kingdom watched, like hawks circling overhead, as Camilla navigated a delicate dance of acceptance, a step too bold risking the wrath of a nation steadfast in its adoration for Diana, gone but not forgotten. Beyond the borders of regal obligations lay a landscape dotted with emotional minefields where every footfall could render the delicate edifice of newfound love into shards. Yet, amidst this perilous labyrinth, Camilla stood as an indomitable presence alongside Charles, brave in her willingness to stand by her love's side and brave the storm that seemed relentless in its pursuit. Dramatically, as history pressed its trembling hand against the glass pane of the present, Camilla's acceptance within the royal fold became not merely a matter of family intrigue, but an emblem of change. An era of redefinition beckoned, its melody carrying both the scars of past heartache and the promise of a future newly unfurling. In this grand tableau where love was neither linear nor simple, the tapestry of their lives stitched together the remnants of embers that refused to fade silently into the night. Their story was not merely a chapter in the lengthy tome of royal affairs, but a saga of imperishable devotion that resonated through the hallowed halls of Windsor, promising resolution even as it invited further queries. As the kingdom leaned in, breath bated, hearts hesitant, and history poised to judge, the affair with Camilla was more than a story, it was a revelation that dared the royal house to confront its notions of loyalty, love, and legacy. In the hallowed corridors of the Grand Palace, secrets lie hidden beneath layers of pomp, and tradition a tapestry woven with threads of power, ambition, and betrayal. It was amidst this backdrop that a single document, an innocuous memo, slipped from shadowed hands into the realm of public scrutiny, igniting a firestorm within the castle's regal walls. The palace, once a bastion of impenetrable authority, found itself mired in scandal, as if the very foundation of its sovereignty were cracking under the weight of its own clandestine machinations. This leak was no mere accident. It was a deliberate act, a whisper transformed into a scream that announced to the world that all was not well in the monarch's kingdom. As the winds of rumour swirled through banquet halls and swept beneath gilded arches, the monarchy was forced to confront its reflection in the broken glass of its once enviable facade. The memo, with its damning revelations of fiscal misdeeds and questionable alliances, spread like wildfire. Its embers a call to arms for those who dwelt in the citadels of power and the sowers of dissent alike. Distrust fermented like an unbidden contagion, cascading through courtyards and echoing in every chamber. Tempers flared as accusations bred paranoia, a palace embroiled in an internal conflict as fiery as the blazes of revolution that once ravaged empires long forgotten. The king, a figure whose stoic exterior had long been perceived as unassailable, now appeared as vulnerable as any mortal. Eyes that once commanded respect now darted with uncertainty, each gaze a silent plea for loyalty from subjects who might no longer recognize the crown's authority. Loyalists and opportunists alike engaged in a perilous dance, maneuvering through corridors by day, whispering conspiracies by night, a shadow play of intentions both noble and nefarious. Allegiances were questioned, motives dissected with the precision of a surgeon's knife. Lines once clear blurred as truths bled into lies, and alliances carved in stone threatened to shatter under the strain of suspicion. And as the dust settled, with half-truths and half-lies standing stark against the monarchy's stately history, one truth remained stubbornly resilient, a tale now transformed into legend. The leaked memo was more than mere paper and ink. It was the harbinger of change, a symbol of the kingdom's internal discord brought into sharp relief. It dared to challenge the narrative of invulnerability, reminding all of the fragility inherent within power itself. In its wake, The echoes of betrayal lingered, and the once unshakable royal stood poised on the brink of an uncertain future, a future where whispers were as potent as proclamations, and the walls of power held secrets that could no longer be silenced. Yet even as the palace grappled with its tangled web of truths, the storm showed no signs of abating. A disruptive gale loomed on the horizon, promising more revelations, more unrest, a reminder that in the world of sovereigns, nothing is ever settled, and the battle for trust was just beginning. And so, within the shadowed corridors of the palace, a quiet storm began to stir. Camilla found herself entwined in a precarious dance with circumstance, her position both coveted and questioned, a fixture in one of history's most revered institutions, and yet an outsider. Her past, so publicly chronicled in whispers and headlines, seemed determined to shadow her every step. To many, she was an enigma, caught between tradition and modernity, love and duty. But it was this very complexity that forged her resolve, this storm from which she would emerge, not just as a figure by someone else's side, but as a pivotal force in her own right. Her path was never meant to be passive. With each challenge, her determination became more palpable, like a relentless tide against the worn cliffs of doubt. Amidst these tumultuous seas, Camilla's journey was a masterclass in resilience and reinvention. Faced with unrelenting scrutiny and veiled hostility, she learned to wield their skeptical gaze as both armor and weapon. Her every move, once calculated to merely survive, now bore the potential to redefine the very essence of the crown itself. It was as if the constraints that bound her were slowly unraveling, revealing not a common consort, but a woman of formidable strength and intention. The whispers of a nation could not deter her, nor the piercing judgments that lay in wait. Instead, they became the very fuel that ignited her transformation. This was her moment to claim more than a royal role, to seize destiny with her own deft hand. Yet, victory was anything but certain. For Camilla, ascending to the crown was akin to mastering a delicate balancing act. With each public engagement, every charity she championed, a new layer of her public persona was carefully curated. She understood the narrative, both the one told by others and the one she slowly began to craft herself. A narrative where triumph was drawn from adversity, where the apparent fragility of a title was metamorphosed into an emblem of resilience and fortitude. Here, beneath the crown's gleaming facade, lay an unwavering woman, unyielding in her pursuit of a legacy beyond loyalty, a legacy of true influence and enduring grace. Yet even as she settled, the echoes of old fight of pathos and perseverance wove together into the tapestry of her reign. And still, lingering in the air thickly, was the question that refused to dissipate. Could she hold on to the crown amidst turbulent tides and ruthless scrutiny? This was not just a matter of public favor, it was a test of will, a testament to a vision she'd long held in the confines of her heart. And so, there she stood, at the fulcrum of expectation, armed with a quiet resilience that had been honed through lifetimes of whispered accusations. Camilla had learned not only to endure but to ascend, to transform the narrative to her favor. And this potent transformation, this rise to capture the crown, was just the beginning of an unfolding saga. A saga whose next chapter awaited, drenched in possibility and peril. At the very precipice of power, Charles found himself trapped in a gilded cage, one that transferred the weight of an empire and the echoes of 1,000 voices, whispering the expectations of an entire nation. From a young age, Charles was groomed for the coveted position nestled in the heart of a dynasty revered and respected across the world. Yet, the golden robes he wore weighed heavily with the burden of tradition, leaving shadows longer than the corridors of his ancestors' palace. His journey, both a privilege and a punishment, was marked by the relentless tug-of-war between duty and desire, as though he straddled a fine line drawn by history itself. As the sun rose on a new era, brimming with promises and prospects for change, Charles felt the pulsing heartbeat of his personal dreams thrum beneath the surface of royal obligations. The crown on his head often sat uneasily, each jewel a reminder of a choice sacrificed at the altar of lineage. But beneath the veneer of pomp and elegance was a man wrestling with the spectre of his own aspirations, a realm where love, respect, and duty were continually at odds. His heart, a battlefield of conflicting emotions, remained unyielded to the seductive whispers of a world beyond power. There lay an insurgency against the expectations shackling him to a throne. Yet, each whispered moment with those he loved whispered betrayal to his heritage and internal blockade against an elemental truth that the very heartbeat of monarchy lay within the tensions he experienced. Those moments of weakness, hidden well behind the mask of royal poise, shaped the man standing beneath the veneer of ceremonial armor. It was in the intimate borders of his solitude that Charles's spirit engaged in a dialogue with destiny, contested by visions of a life lived on his own terms, free from the haunting echoes of responsibility laid out by long-dead kings and queens. This struggle was not new, but therein lay the labyrinth, its paths carved by both hereditary ties and personal longing, leading to a single truth Charles hoped to avoid. In the battle of heir versus heart, both defeat and victory carried the weight of profound consequence. And so, the kingdom watched with bated breath, yearning to see which path the prince would choose, aware that either choice bore the seeds of change that would irrevocably alter the fabric of the monarchy forever. Much like the storms he navigated, Charles's journey through the tumultuous waves of tradition and modernity reflected a saga rich with perilous intrigue and heart-rending devotion. Though the future remained an uncharted territory woven with uncertainties, the legacy Charles would forge seemed destined to reverberate through the annals of time. With every step he took, the stories of heirs past lingered, weaving a tapestry laced with triumphs and trials. As anticipation reached a fever pitch, there lingered an undeniable question that danced upon the lips of commoners and courtiers alike. Was it the call of the heir, or the whisper of the heart that heeded the greater call? And thus, in the silence of a nation, and indeed a world waiting, Charles stood poised, on the precipice of his destiny. As dawn lifts the shroud of night from royal grounds, an unsuspecting tranquility descends. The world beholds two brothers, William and Harry, shadows of regal lineage but vessels of vigour and youthful rebellion. Raised within the hallowed walls of Buckingham Palace and anchored under the watchful gaze of their mother, the story of two princes reflects both a prestigious heritage and the inevitable tension of expectation. From the outset, their paths, though carved by birthright, begin to diverge, with William often seen as the princely heir, destined for the crown, while Harry emerges as the spirited adventurer, emboldened by a freedom his older brother could rarely afford. Their harmonious beginnings were marred by common struggles, shadows of public scrutiny, and whispers within gilded corridors that weighed heavily on young shoulders. As time unfurls, whispers become echoes of an unspoken rivalry, seemingly innate but ever-growing. The brotherly bond tethered in shared blood appears to fray at the edges. Though brothers by blood and bond, the world soon saw them as yin and yang, two forces that outwardly complemented, yet inwardly conflicted. As William steps into the traditional role, aligning closely with royal duties, the fabric of his life is woven tightly with duty and decorum. He glides through protocols and performs with the instinctual nobility expected of a future monarch, earning reverence and adulation. But Harry, with a heart swayed by worldly intrigue, sidesteps the perpetual scrutiny, seeking solace outside the rigid expectations. His journey navigates through the vast landscapes of Africa's wild savannas and the raw, unembellished empathy for its people, revealing a man who cradles the shock of loss with the daredevil's courage. Yet more than the latter, Harry bears a heart hungering for purpose beyond the confines of crown and kingdom. As familial bonds oscillate between public unity and private rifts, the world they inhabit both pushes and pulls at their identities. The jagged lines of duty and desire cut deeply beneath the surface of royal cohesion. With William embracing the weighty mantle of the monarchy, a spectre of distance haunts the royal sons. Their paths intertwine and separate, like rivers carving through the earth, creating deltas of intrigue and volatility. Within Harry's narrative blooms his marriage to Meghan, an event that, far from unifying the brothers, unfolds like a fissure with ripples of both wonder and disquiet, punctuating the cascade of duty and defiance. At once allies and rivals, the brothers' evolving journey invite a speculation, marking a realm uncharted by their lineage and shadowed by the omnipresent eye of media intrusion. How does one straddle the line between duty to family and allegiance to self? While one brother entrenches himself in tradition, the other blazes a path engulfed in new challenges. The stage is set. The world watches. The story of William and Harry becomes not just a tale of royal decorum and familial bonds, but an epic investigation into the rifts that can widen within even the most historic bloodlines. It is among the flickering gaslights of the evening and the hushed whispers of society's elders that the truth lurks. An inquiry that delves beyond the surface. So, with bated breath, we march forward through the unfolding chapters of royalty untangled, hearts unhindered, each footstep echoing bold decisions and unseen hurdles looming beyond the horizon. In the bustling corridors of the ancient palace, whispers flutter like restless moths. The echo of every footstep on the marbled floors reverberates with a spectre's rhythm, a reminder of power's fragility. At the epicenter of this grand facade sits the Queen, her presence as formidable as the stone walls that house her legacy. Yet within her gaze lies a tempest, one that has silently brewed over years of gilded captivity. It was whispered among courtiers and commoners alike, the Queen's resolve would one day shake the very foundation of the realm. For within her heart, an edict lingered, a fierce proclamation, meant not just for the living, but echoing through time itself. Even her most trusted confidants were often left in the dark, as her true intentions only danced on the edge of their understanding. It was an era fraught with deceit. Yet, cloaked in secrecy, the Queen's plans simmered, biding their time until the moment of crescendo. Her pronouncement came not with a whisper, but a declaration, a daring act that would expose half-formed alliances, testing loyalties like never before. The court was austere, noble heads whispered, fraught with conspiracies wrapped within conspiracies. The Queen, however, stood resolute. An iron will encased in a gown of unassuming silk, she knew that to change the course of history, her hand must appear both gentle and unwavering. Within the hushed chambers where the verdicts of kingdoms are written, she forged a decree as astonishing as it was inevitable. Secret scrolls were dispatched under the cover of night, each sealed with her insignia. It spoke of reform, of granting power where there'd been none before, of voices not heard, now given reason to sing. The Queen was challenging the pillars of tradition that had served to bind her, binding the generations before her. But every stone cast can ripple beyond its intended waters. In shadows, darker forces conspired, stirred to life by her audacity. Whispers of rebellion grew like wild thorns, seeking to tear down her vision before it could flower. And just as a tempest gathers strength from within, so too did her own resolve deepen. Battles were not only fought at the front lines, but woven into this tapestry of intrigue and ambition. She was no longer the sheltered sovereign. She was a harbinger of change, standing at the precipice, ready to turn tides that had held strong for eternity. Yet, as the world held its breath, a question loomed like an unending echo, a transition that beckoned. Would the Queen's stand inspire redemption or herald ruin? Each step bore the weight of destiny unfolding, anticipation laced with dread as history awaited its unfolding chapter. The echoes of past turmoil still reverberated through the majestic halls, where portraits of yesteryears hung solemnly as witnesses to a sweeping transformation. Shadows of betrayal and broken alliances may have threatened the very bedrock of the monarchy, but the family persists, reborn in resolve and reinvented in relevancy. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Now, bearing the weight of history's harsh lessons, a vibrant new narrative emerges. No longer shackled by the ghosts of antiquity, They find themselves forging paths in unknown territories. It's no longer merely about the glint of crowns or the echo of ceremonial trumpets. It's about redefining their role in a modern tapestry of society. Their imagery, once an untouchable fortress of pride, morphs under unprecedented scrutiny, embracing transparency as their shield and adaptability as their sword. The challenges faced have birthed a unique opportunity, an era where they are not just historical figures, but approachable symbols of unity and progress. In this evolving legacy, the attempt to balance tradition with innovation becomes a delicate dance, one watched eagerly by both admirers and critics alike. The past may hold them in its relentless clutch, reminding them of the treacherous roads they have traveled, yet it is this very past that fuels their journey onward. With each misstep meticulously dissected and each triumph lavishly celebrated, they learn what it means to be truly accountable. The future shimmers with possibilities, the possibilities of reforming not just their image, but their purpose. The question now is, will they manage to replace the echo of past failures with the symphony of future prosperity? And how will they navigate the tremulous path ahead? Only time will tell, as the monarchy stands poised at an extraordinary inflection point, eager for an audience with the future. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.